Super.
This meeting is being recorded.
Now,
Super. Thank you very much, Declan. Morning, everybody. Hope you're all well, and looking forward to working with you over the next number of weeks as we go through the credit management module. So, by way of introduction, my name is Paul Daly. And I work for Accenture, in addition to working alongside Declan as an extra job. So I've in recent years done a bit of a move away, so I don't actually work in credit or collections anymore, but I have done 12 years of it with Accenture with one of their diamond clients, and then prior to that I did a couple of years working with Philips and then also Oracle. So got 14 plus years experience working in both the credit and collections area. I've done all of the lines of business that we have in Accenture, done all of the regions that we have. So done some credits, mainly collections, but done some of that. And I suppose most importantly, aside from all of that, I have also done, going back 10 plus years ago, I was sitting where you are sitting now, and I did this course with Declan, albeit it was not a virtual format back then. It was in Trinity College where I first met Declan. So I've done the course myself and a number of other modules as well. But very much looking forward to working with you, and hopefully we'll work well together over the next number of weeks. So what I will do this morning is I'm not going to go into any sort of detail, but what I will do is I will give you a whistle-stop tour of what we're going to cover off in the credit management module. I'm not going to go into any massive detail, as I said, so certainly no need to take anything down. Anything I cover will be in the notes. So do that. Go take you through the 4 modules that we'll do, and so that'll take us for the next kind of 30, 40 minutes. Okay. So I suppose in terms of credit management, just to kick off, I suppose there's 2 things that you will see as a common theme throughout all 4 modules, and I suppose I'll probably refer back to it more than once in the next 30, 40 minutes. There is one overriding reason that we do everything we do in credit management, okay, and that is ultimately to get paid. Okay, to get paid on time, or to get paid earlier. Okay, so that is ultimately everything we do, or pretty much everything we cover off in the 4 modules, is linking back to that overall principle of that. The reason that we're doing it is to get paid, and to get paid on time, or if not on time, to get paid faster. Okay. And so that is the so apologies, I'm slightly throaty, a little bit of a cold during the week, but I'll muddle on through. But that is ultimately what it is we're doing. So everything we're going to cover off, pretty much everything we're going to cover off, links back to that overall topic. Okay. And the way that we have the course is structured through the 4 modules is we are going to use a model that Declan has devised in relation to how to manage our credit. We are going to use what is known as the ATTACK model. Okay, ATTACK, ATTACK, the ATTACK model, as is the model that we're going to use to manage our credit. All right. So ATTACK obviously stands for a number of different things. The first A in the ATTACK acronym stands for assessment. Okay, so we're going to cover that off in a minute because that's in module 1. All right. Then we cover off the 2 T's, which are covered in module 3. The first one is terms and conditions. Okay, and the second T stands for teamwork. Okay. Then we're going to cover off the second A, which we cover off in module 2. So we're not going to do these in exact order. We're going to do modules 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so module 2 covers off the second A. The second A stands for administration. Okay. The C in the ATTACK model stands for collections. And the K, lastly, the K, which we will also cover off in module 2, stands for key performance indicators, or KPIs. Okay, so that's the ATTACK model. Okay, assessment, terms and conditions, teamwork, administration, collections, and key performance indicators. Okay, those are the 6 things that we're going to be covering off in the 4 modules, and that's how you remember it, the ATTACK model. Okay. Okay, so the first one, as I said, that we cover off in module 1 is assessment. Okay, so when you are granting credit, you're essentially lending money to somebody. Okay, so you are giving them goods or services in some cases as early as today. And what you are doing is you are trusting them to repay you in 30 days, 45, some cases less, maybe 7, 14. But you are essentially, you're trusting them to give you money back, or to pay for the goods or services at some later date. Okay, so that's what you're doing. So in order to do that, in the same way that you would if you were lending money to somebody in your personal life, you're going to be asking yourself a number of questions. Okay, so you're going to be saying, okay, so who am I trusting with this money? All right, how much do I think I can trust them with? How long do I think I can trust them for? And are they willing and able to pay the full amount in the due date? Okay, if you were lending money in your personal life, those are questions you'd be asking yourself before you would agree to lend the money. Who are you trusting? How much do you think you can trust them with? How long do you think you can trust them for? And are they both willing and able to pay the full amount on the due date? Okay, so what you're doing there is you're going to do a bit of an assessment. Okay, so you're going to assess the customer that you are going to be giving credit terms to. You're going to be asking those questions. Okay, so when you're asking yourself who you're trusting, I mean, the first thing you're going to try and find out is, okay, what sort of company am I dealing with? Am I dealing with a sole trader? Am I dealing with a limited company? Am I dealing with an unlimited company? Who is it that I'm trusting? Because the answer to those questions will be key to, okay, well, do I give them credit to begin with? And if I do, how much do I actually give them? And if I give them credit and I'm giving them a certain amount, how long am I going to allow them before I'm going to look for it back? So you're going to do an assessment as to who it is that you're looking at. So we're going to cover that off in module 1. Okay. Now, how do we get that information? The main tool that we use to get that information, certainly as a starting point anyway, is our credit application form. Okay, so we are going to be asking some questions in our credit application form, and from that we are going to decide, okay, is this an entity that we can grant credit to? How much? How long? And so on. Okay. Now, different people would have different thoughts on the credit application form, but for me, there's 3 key things that you're looking to get in a credit application form. We're going to cover this off in module 1, okay? So for me, we're going to be looking for, in the credit application form, we're going to be looking out for some credit information, okay? So that's to try to give an understanding as to whether or not this company or this individual can pay us back. So we're going to be looking at, okay, what type of company are they? What type of business? How many employees do they have? How long are they in operation? Do they own buildings? We're going to be asking those type of questions. Okay, that's for a business-to-business credit application form. For a consumer application form, we're going to be looking at the money going in and the money going out. Okay, and we're going to be trying to ask ourselves, okay, well, are they good for the money that they're looking for or not? Okay. The second thing that we're going to be looking out for in a credit application form, for me anyway, that is very important, is look for things that are going to stop you getting paid on time. Okay, the classic one is PO numbers. Okay, the invoice has arrived in, but there's no PO number on it, therefore we can't pay it. Okay, so in a good credit application form, you're going to have that covered off in advance. You're going to be asking a company, okay, well, do you have PO numbers? Do you do PO numbers? Do the PO numbers need to be on it? And you can have the discussion beforehand as to what the process is to get the PO number in place, so that there's not going to be any delays in terms of billing or in terms of getting paid when the invoice is issued. And then the last thing that you're going to be looking out for in a credit application form is lots of contact details. In my eyes, that's very, very important. So it's not just one email address and one phone number. Ideally, you would have maybe 3 or 4 different avenues of attack in the event that the invoice goes overdue. Okay, so we're going to be covering all of that off in the credit application form section, which is in module 1. Okay. The second thing we're going to be asking, and that we're also going to cover off in module 1, is how much am I going to trust them with? Am I going to give them a big credit line, or am I going to give them a small credit line? Okay, and there's a number of different criteria that you use to decide whether or not that's a good idea. You're going to look at the strength or weakness of the service that the customer is offering. Okay, is it a strong product? Or is it a product that's maybe coming to the end of the lifespan? Is it a crowded market? Okay, where the customer, if it's a crowded market, the chances of a customer potentially ultimately bowing out and not being able to compete in that market is kind of high. If it's a market that they dominate, it's going to require some sort of disruptor to kind of come in and mess things up. Okay, so you will have to factor that in terms of how much you're going to give them. Are they a secured or unsecured creditor? Are are you just trusting them, or do you have some sort of recourse if they ultimately? So there's a number, there's kind of 7, 8, maybe 10 different questions that are going to determine how much credit you're going to cover, and that is all covered in module 1. So we're going to assess who the customer is, and we're going to use our credit application form to do that. And then the next thing we're going to do in module 1 is we're going to ask ourselves some questions. Okay, well, how much, assuming we're going to give them credit, how much are we going to actually give them? And there's a number of different questions that you can ask yourself when you read module 1 in terms of setting your credit line.
Okay.
And that is what we cover off in module 1. Any questions on that? Okay, like I said, whistle stop tour. Okay, so we're not going to go into any massive detail, but that's what we cover off in module 1. Okay, so module 2 covers off, as I was saying at the beginning, if we think back to our attack model, we've done assessment, which is the first day. We're now going to move on to the second day. We're going to jump over the 2 T's. We're going to come back to them in module 3. We're going to do the second A. Second A stands for administration. Okay, and we're also going to cover off the K from the attack model in module 2. That's key performance indicators or reporting, but we'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. Okay, so administration. So when you are dealing with credit and collections, or tying back to what I said, your aim is always to get paid and to get paid on time while keeping the customer. That is ultimately, if we're summing it up, there's a number of different ways you're going to sum up, but that is certainly a very good goal to have when you're dealing with credit or collections. Okay, to keep your customer, but to also get paid on time. But having a good, strong collections process and having a good, strong credit process, that's not usually enough to get yourself paid on time. You have to look a lot further. You have to look at the entire order to cash process in order to make sure that you're going to get paid on time. So the types of questions you're going to be asking yourself, so you're looking a lot wider than just your collections process and your credit process. You need to go all the way back to the very beginning. And so, the types of questions, and we have a number of checklists in module 2 where you can ask yourself, okay, is the company running as efficiently as it could be in order to make sure? Because if it's running efficiently, the chances of you getting paid on time are much, much greater than if it's not. Okay, so the types of things I'm talking about is, do you have a list of customers? Do you have a way of ensuring that if the customer orders something, that you record that order and deliver that order? How do you ensure it's delivered in full? How do you ensure that there's an invoice created in a timely manner? Okay, if you create your invoice 2 months after you deliver the product, the customer is going, well, what's this for again? Your chances of getting paid are already, before you've started anything, are already significantly weaker. Okay, have you got a ledger? Okay, it's fine to create an invoice, but does that go on to a ledger and also a statement so that the customer knows that they owe money and that you know that they owe money? Okay, when the money comes in, do you have a process for assigning it to the correct invoice? Okay, if you have a big ledger which is full of old debt, and then on the other side a big pile of cash that is also there for quite a number of weeks, and you don't know which is which, the chances of you being able to successfully call a customer and say, you owe me money, is significantly reduced. If you've got a good way of clearing that, the chance of you being able to call a customer with confidence and say, you owe me money, is significantly better. So we've got a number of checklists in module 2 that you can run through, and you can ask yourself, okay, is the company running this as efficiently as we possibly can? And if the answer is yes, all the way through, your chances of being paid are significantly better. And you've got to keep in mind you're in competition for money, okay? If the company down the road is also dealing with this customer and their processes are all over the place, you're the one that's going to get paid on time. If they can only afford to pay one, you're the one that's going to get paid on time, not the company that has their offices down the road. Okay. Again, under module 2, we're going to look at the area of documentation. Okay, so a key reason as to why companies don't get paid on time is their invoices and their credit notes. Okay, their invoices either contain not enough information, or the reverse, they contain too much irrelevant information. So it's hard for the people in accounts payable or whatever department is responsible for making the payment. Very hard for them to pick their way through and find the right information that they need to actually get paid. So as a result, the invoices go to the bottom of the pile. The pile gets bigger, and you guys, your invoices stay at the bottom of it. Okay. Another thing we're going to look at is credit notes. Okay, how good are your credit notes? Are people able to distinguish the credit notes from the invoices so they don't try and pay it, or they don't, or worse still, they don't try and deduct invoices and say, well, like, clearly don't owe that because it's a credit note, and in reality it's an invoice. We're going to look at statements. Okay, so how do you create your statements in the right way so that so again it gets the customer's attention and doesn't send the wrong message to the customer in terms of maybe having information on there that you don't really need to, or that gives maybe some indications. Customers are always looking for excuses not to pay or excuses to delay payment. So what we are doing by looking at the invoices, the credit notes, and the statements is we are removing as many of those from them as we can. Okay, that way when we call them up, they have very little to say other than, well, yeah, I suppose I better pay. Okay. We're going to look at a module called Right First Time. Okay, so similar to what we had at the beginning. Okay, we have a checklist of stuff that we're going to go through, and we're going to make sure is all of that as good as it possibly can be, all the time looking to remove the excuses from the customer. We're going to cover off what you're going to check, moving kind of a little bit more into the reporting kind of side of things. We're going to look at what are you going to check every day. Okay, if you're a company that checks stuff once a week, that in reality you should be checking every day, the chances of a customer being able to exploit that to delay paying is significantly better. So I mean, you should be checking things like your bank statement, your unallocated cash, your cash accounts, your invoices. You should be checking that every day. If you're not doing it daily and you're only doing it maybe weekly, the customer has a lot more time to delay in terms of payment. If you're checking stuff monthly that you should really be checking weekly, again, you're giving the customers more and more time to delay payment before you know that there's a problem. They might know there's a problem, but you might not. Okay. So we're going to go through what are the things you should be in detail. What are the things you should be checking every day, every week, and every month. We're going to go through how you report. Okay, so a key challenge that we have in the credit and collections area is a lot of the time the reporting that is done is a little bit on the negative side. Okay, we're reporting about things that are kind of percentage overdue. We're talking about what percentage of our accounts are in 60 plus. We talk about things that are write-offs. These are all negative things. So we're going to show you how to change it, because I mean those type of reports go right to the top of the organization. Okay, and they're reading kind of, oh, it's all doom and gloom in the credit and collection space. We are going to show you how to put more positive spin on the reporting that you are doing, okay, so that people see the good work that you're doing. It's there in front of them, month after month, year after year, that shows some of the good work that you're doing, and it's presented in a more positive way rather than kind of saying, okay, well, here's what we didn't collect, here's what's really old out of what we didn't collect, here's what we had to write off because we're never going to collect it. We're going to show you how to report in a more positive way. So that's going to cover off our K parts of our attack model, our KPIs, okay? And then the last thing that we cover off in module 2 is we are going to take you through all of the different methods of payment that you can have and some of the positives and negatives that you have along with them. So, things like bank transfers and direct debits, and I suppose possibly to a lesser extent these days, checks, they're probably the most common ways of getting paid, but there are actually 24, 25, 26, something like that covered off in the notes of different ways of actually obtaining payment. So we're going to cover off the pluses and minuses of all of those different types of payment. It gives you potentially some room for thoughts in terms of maybe alternative options that you might have in terms of getting paid. Okay, so there's a lot in module 2, but what we cover off in module 2 is we cover off the administration part of the attack model and also the KPIs / the reporting side of the attack model. And that is module 2. Any questions on any of that? No? Okay. All right, I see reasonably happy faces, so that's good. All right, so we move on to module 3. So module 3, if you can remember from the attack model, is 2 T's, okay? First one is terms and conditions, and the second one is teamwork, okay? So we're going to cover those off. There's 1 or 2 other things, but we're going to cover those. Those are the main topics that we cover off in module 3. So a big, certainly in my time in credit and collections, a big discussion point was always, in terms of your terms and conditions, was always your credit terms. Okay, so people will say, well, what are your credit terms? And the answer will more than likely be, well, it's 30 days or it's 45 days or it's 60 days, or maybe in certain businesses in certain regions it might be 90 days. But when does that 30 days actually start? Okay, is it from the date that the order is placed? Is it from the date that the date that's on the invoice? Is it the date the order is received? One that was certainly popular when I was working there, it's the date we received the invoice. So that's when we got the invoice. So we're going to start the clock from there. So we want it. So we're gonna explain to you how it's possible to make it a lot clearer as to what your credit terms are. Okay, so it's not just 30 days; it's 30 days from X. Okay. So what that is going to do is that is going to remove an awful lot of disputes between yourself and your customers. It kind of, well, in our eyes, it's not actually due yet, They say, well, we, on the supplier side, it is due. In fact, it's overdue. Okay. So the customers will always take the longest possible to say, okay, what's the latest thing that happens? Oh, well, it's the date the invoice arrives, or it's the date the product arrives. I'm going to start the clock from there. Okay. So we will take you through that. Okay. So that's a key thing in terms of your terms and conditions. Okay. So clarifying with your customer when the invoice is actually due. Okay. We're going to cover off, similar to some of the stuff we do in module 1, we're going to cover off, okay, what are the things you take into account? I mean, it's also important to set the correct credit terms, okay? There's no point setting credit terms that are far too long. There's also no need to set credit, it's also maybe not good to set credit terms that are far too short, okay? If you're never, if your credit terms are 7 days and there's never a chance that you're going to get paid in 7 days, it probably suggests the credit terms are wrong, okay? So we're going to take you through what are the factors you need to take into consideration. About 15 of them there in the notes. What are the factors you need to take into consideration when setting your credit terms? Okay. Staying with terms and conditions, we're going to take you through some of the most common mistakes that you have in terms and conditions. So a lot of times the terms and conditions only come into play when there's an argument, okay? So people start taking out the terms and conditions and say, oh, it says here, you can do that. Well, it says there that I can do this. So what we will do is, it's important that you cover those off with your customers right much earlier in the process than 90% of companies actually do. So we will take you through what a lot of the issues that you might have in terms of terms and conditions and how to make sure that they're communicated and agreed up front, so you're not pulling them out only when a big dispute that is impacting your ledger as is already well in place and is already getting old. Okay. Next thing we're going to cover off in module 3 is what are known as our Incoterms. Okay, so this is where we're dealing with international trade. What they cover off is where is it that the responsibility for the products begin? Where does the supplier's responsibility end, and where does the buyer's responsibility begins? Okay, so in some cases the supplier's responsibility ends as soon as they have handed the product over to the buyer, which might be at their own address. In some cases, you have to deliver the product to the supplier. So if that's not agreed, to the buyer, if that's not agreed up front and is not clearly marked on the invoices, the opportunity for disputes is significantly higher. What happens when there's disputes? You don't get paid. Okay, so we will cover off how to cover off your Incoterms. Okay, so you can specify, so that allows you to specify where the responsibility of the supplier ends and where does the responsibility of the buyer begin, and to make it clear from the beginning. The next thing we're going to cover off in module 3 is a meaty module, so there's a lot of stuff in it, but the next thing we're going to cover off is your company's credit policy. So your company's credit policy is essentially a rule book / playbook as to how you're going to manage all of your credit and collections activities. Okay, so it shouldn't be the dunning letters that you send out. There may be times where you will send an extra letter or an extra communication of some kind, but there should be a rhythm to it. It shouldn't just be, well, I'll send as many as I can get through in a particular day. There should be a rhythm and a logic as to how it's done. Okay, same with the phone calls. Okay, and where I suppose the credit policy, maybe out of all of them, plays the kind of biggest part is when you're talking about putting accounts on hold. It shouldn't be a case of, well, I'm the collector, and I'm in a bad mood. This customer has annoyed me one too many times, so I'm going to put them on hold. That's not really the way it should work. Okay, there should be certain criteria that says, okay, this is when you go on hold if you're a small customer. This is where you go on hold if you're a medium risk customer. This is where you go on hold if you're a high risk customer, or this is how you do it in terms of revenue. What it does is it'll cover all of the different criteria as to how you give credit, how you put accounts on hold, how you do collections, how you grant credits. It'll cover off a number of different criteria as to how you're going to set those. And it should be a living document, not something that's kind of written once and then filed away forever. It should be a living document that you will consult and you will update as things change.
Okay.
So there's a lot in there, but that is the terms and conditions section. We're going to move on to teamwork in a minute, but before we leave the terms and conditions section, are there any questions on that? That's in module 3.
No.
No, thanks.
No, all clear. Excellent. Okay. So the second part of module 3, well, actually, there's 3 parts of module 3. So the second part is teamwork. Okay, so it might be nice in a way if credit and collections people only had to work with other credit and collections people, but that's not the reality. Okay, so you will be working with a number of different departments, and they will have a number of different mindsets in terms of the way they work. Marketing people tend to think differently to collections people. Sales people definitely think differently to those in the credit and collections world. Okay, so we're going to explain to you how you work with marketing. Okay, so marketing needs to kind of take, or how you build a strong relationship with marketing so that marketing don't embark on the next big thing that is hopefully going to make lots of money for the company without discussing how is that going to work from a credit and collections point of view. So I mean, says, oh, we're going to grant credit terms. An example might be, right, we're going to grant credit terms of 30 days, but the cost to the customer is going to be €5 a go. Okay, the last thing you want is a load of €5 invoices all falling due in 30 days time that you then have to go and collect. Okay, if it's €5 to the customer, it should be either rolled in with something else or it's cash up front. Okay, it's something like that. Okay, if you buy something for €5 on the internet, you don't usually get credit terms. You might get credit terms from your credit card company because you buy it through. Company themselves do not. Okay, so we will show you how to work with marketing. We'll show you how to work with sales. Okay, so traditionally a big battleground is sales and credit. Sales want to put the invoice through. Credit or collections want to hold it. Okay, because the last one has not been paid. We will talk to you about how to work with sales and how to get on a similar footing with sales and how to potentially change your mindset. Maybe work to try to change their mindset. That's not easy, but maybe how to change their mindset. But there's certain things we can do to work together where it'll produce a more harmonious relationship than maybe you've been used to. So we're going to cover that off in module 3. We're also going to talk about operations teams and also service departments. Okay, so operations teams, you are going to need operations to, well, among other things, to create credit notes where things have gone wrong. Okay, that's certainly what I remember my biggest need for operations was, but they will be things that operations will need from you. Okay, if they're trying to put through orders that sales teams are barking at them to put through and they can't get them through because the account is on hold, you will need to work together in order to come to a solution on that. Okay, so we're going to talk to you about that. We're also going to talk to you about service departments. Okay, so there's no point in service departments providing brilliant service to a customer who is 90 days overdue. Okay, you will need to work together with them. So we're going to talk to you how to work with marketing, with sales, with operations, and how to work with service departments. Okay. All right. Like I said, it'd be nice if credit collections people only worked with other people because they tend to have a similar mindset, but that's not the reality. Okay. So that's the T bit of the attack model. The last thing that we cover off in module 3, which isn't really related to either the terms and conditions or the teamwork, but it is an important part. It is related, I suppose, more to the reporting side of things, is we are going to show you how to calculate days sales outstanding. Okay. Scary concept in a way, but I mean, in simple terms, days sales outstanding is a measurement to show you how long is it taking you to get paid. Okay, if you bill $1 million worth of billing to a customer on the last day of April, how long is it taking you to get paid? Do you get paid? Will you have that money in your account by the end of May, by the end of June? By the end of July? When is it? How long is it actually taking before that balance is actually cleared and gone? Okay, so that gives you your sales outstanding. Okay, so that in its simplest terms is what days sales outstanding are. We're going to show you a number of different ways to calculate that at the end of module 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how am I doing for time? Not doing too badly. I've got one more module to go, and it's actually the shortest. So module 4 is the one remaining letter that we have not done in the attack model, and that is the letter C, okay, which stands for collections, okay? So we do have a separate collections module, okay, which covers things like, okay, what way do you write your dunning letters? What way do you write emails when a customer is overdue? What is the tone and pitch and the speed at which you talk to your customers in your collections calls? So that's covered off in the collections module. So that's not what we're going to be covering off here, okay? What we're primarily talking about when we're talking about the collection side of things is it's more when we've gone beyond the dunning letters, the collections calls, and the emails and so on. When things are beginning to kind of reach maybe the more serious stage of things, that's the collections bit that we cover off in the credit management module. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about things like customer visits. Okay, so I mean, if things have gone, your customer visits can be very pleasant and positive, and can be with a large customer, but who tends to pay on time. There's nothing wrong with that, so you can do those. But a lot of times they're going to be where things have maybe gone a bit wrong. Either there's a lot of disputes or there's a lot of debt. They're falling into kind of the can't pay kind of side of things. So we're going to talk to you about customer visits, how you do a successful customer visit, and how you build relationships with your customers and customer visits. We're also going to be talking about, I mean, you'll get some of this from your calls and your dunning letters, but in some cases you'll find it out through other means. But we're also going to talk to you about how do you distinguish between shouldn't pay, can't pay, and won't pay customers, okay? Because your strategy to collect is different depending on whether the customer shouldn't pay because there's a load of valid disputes on the account, can't pay because they don't have the money, or quite simply just won't pay. They have the money, there's no real reason for them not to pay, but they're not actually doing it. Your strategy is going to be different depending on which of the 3 categories your customer falls into. Okay, so we're going to be talking to you about that in module 4. Okay. What else are we going to cover off in module 4? We're going to cover off a few other things. We're going to cover off financial reviews. Okay, so you can visit your customer and you can kind of basically talk about maybe their payment performance and so on. But you can also go into a bit more detail and get into the financial review. Have a look at the books and talk to the financial controller and have a good. You're not necessarily going to do that. You have to do a bit of prep work and so on that, and maybe build a bit of relationship, because it may not be necessarily you're going to do that on day one, the first time you have any dealings with them. But we're going to talk to you about doing financial reviews. Okay, so how to actually talk to your customer about about doing a financial health check on them. We're going to talk to you about third-party agencies. Okay, so we've reached a stage where the debt, the collector has tried their best. They have not been successful in collecting it. Maybe you might want to consider, you have 2 options at that stage. You can write it off. Well, 3 options. 1, you can keep trying. 2, you can write it off. Or 3, you can outsource it to a third-party debt collection agency who will collect it for a fee, or will attempt to collect it for a fee. So we're going to talk to you about how you manage third-party debt collections. And we will also talk about, I suppose, the very end of the life cycle of potentially a customer. So if you're getting into scenarios where you're into liquidation, okay? So if the customer is potentially in their final days and is potentially on the verge of being liquidated, we're going to talk to you about the different types of liquidation and the steps to take of that. We're going to talk to you about receivership as well. Okay, so how you handle a scenario where you actually have a right to some company assets in the event that the debt has not been paid, that you can use to discharge the debt. We'll talk to you about examinership, okay, which is the third one of those type of things. So a scenario whereby a customer can apply for examinership and get some sort of protection, what you can and you cannot do during that period, and also how you handle creditors meetings, okay? So if there happens to be a creditors meeting, how you prepare for that and how you handle it, okay? So it's kind of like I said, it goes beyond the dunning letters, the phone calls. It's more where things have reached a more serious end of that. But that is what we cover off in module 4. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And by then, if you're not already, you'll be experts in the credit management field.
Awesome.
Declan, anything I've forgotten?
Unmute myself now, that'll help. No, well done. I think you covered off the modules, and I hope we're giving you a flavor for it. And do you know what we want to do as well is kind of re-energize you on the credit front as well, because sometimes it can be the same old, same old. So we just want to give you new energy and new enthusiasm and just a bit of motivation to get out there and do it. And, you know, at least once a day to clench your fist and go, damn, I'm good. You know? and that's the kind of fuel that keeps you going in credit. And you know, the other thing, and even from Monday morning onwards, like Paul dealt with queries and problems and all that sort of stuff. Guys, that is the job. You know, problems and queries is not an interruption to the work, it is the work. And if you see yourself as an excellent problem solver, and the reason you're doing it and like doing it is because you're good at solving problems, then, you know, see that as the goal that you're doing, rather than a total just one problem after another. So just to get the buzz out of it and enjoy it. And there's a huge career in credit as well. More and more large companies now are appointing directors of credit. There's credit management roles, and certainly over the next couple of years, I see credit management becoming far more important within the business as money becomes more expensive, interest rates going up, you know, finance become tighter. There's not the availability of cash, and like everybody has always got the option. The solution to all their financial problems are sitting in the debtors ledger. And if we're doing a great job and we can turn that into cash quickly, you know, we are the saviors of the business, not just, oh, I'm just a credit controller. No, you're the person who's paying everyone's wages by the work that you're doing. You have a very important role. And if you take that seriously and get involved with the business, and yes, we want to sell and we want profitable sales, not just sales for the sake of it. It just gives us that energy and enthusiasm to stay going. So hopefully we covered off everything. As I say, if there are issues that you have questions about, the course material itself is always updating and always, you know, adding new things as things change. So I'm always happy to add new bits to it if there's an interest there, or if there's an inquiry. And you're getting your first set of notes. You'll probably say, would it be tomorrow or Monday, Paul? You'll send them out.
It may possibly be Monday just for the first set of notes.
Yeah,
I
okay,
normally send them out by Sunday. So
Yeah.
definitely, if by Monday evenings in general you haven't received them, kind of something may have gone a bit awry. So so do put your hand up. But I normally try to get them out on Sundays. It may be Monday just for this.
Yeah, it
batch.
just depends on the way the weekend
Yeah.
goes. Yeah, well, in the notes we say you get your notes on Monday, so you will definitely have them by Monday. So if you want to schedule Monday evening a couple of hours, you will have the notes there. You'll get your notes, you'll get your short test, you read the notes, you understand them, you fill in the short test, send it back to Paul, and then he'll give you your feedback and your marks. And you're on the road. So look, welcome aboard. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. And look, stay in touch with us, and we're always here to help.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very
folks.
much. Thanks very much.
indeed.
Bye,
Thanks, Paul.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good working with you.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.